Alright everybody, now that you have a general idea of what it means to time the market, let me give you some examples. And before I do that, let me give you this different kinds of scenarios that you can have when you are trading these market timed equities. Okay, now I'm gonna have to go a little bit quick here because this video is gonna be very long, okay, because I have a lot of material here. But basically you can trade with the trend. So in other words, if the market is establishing some sort of trend, then your equity could also be establishing that trend, so you have that momentum behind you, okay, to either go long or short. You can time reversals, so if the market is coming into a major pivot point, then also if your equity, your chart is coming into a pivot point, then you can time them, so that you enter at that particular time. And then you can look for relative weakness or relative strength. So even though you may not be in a trade, even though you may only be in cash, okay, it's always a good idea to compare, your charts against the market. So if the chart looks weaker than the market, then that may be a future setup for a short, and if it looks stronger than the market, then that may be a setup for a buy later on. Okay, now let me show you how my trades, my charting software is set up. I have eSignal, and so on one side I have a chart of interest, which in this case is just WIN, just a random chart. And then on the other side I have the SPY, and I love the SPY. This, when I talk about the market, this is the chart that I'm talking about. The SPY is a very broad market index. It basically tells you about every single sector, and it's telling you about these big companies that have volume, that have volatility. So it's not like the Dow that only talks about these 30 big giants, and it's not price adjusted or anything like that. Use the spider. So this is the chart that you should always look at. Now I also like the Nasdaq. So if you look, if you're looking at some sort of tech company, Apple or whatever, look at the Nasdaq, but primarily don't ever take your eye off of the SPY chart. This is the chart that you should be looking at, and if you're an intraday trader and you follow my methods, you know that I always look at the 10-minute chart. So make sure that your time frames are the same on both charts. That way you can compare them. Okay, and eSignal has this really nice feature where you can kind of play back a chart, and that's what we're going to do here. And so we're looking at the WIN chart and the SPY chart on an intraday basis. And so what we see for this particular day is that we gapped up in the market, then had a pullback, rallied, pulled back, and rallied, and closed on the intraday highs. WIN also had a gap up, but it continued for 30 minutes and then it had a pullback. So relatively speaking, compare this area to that area, you have to say that WIN looks stronger than the market just based on this rally here. And then we also noticed that the market had a pullback here and then rallied in the afternoon, whereas WIN just basically rounded off right here. So WIN looks stronger compared to the market because it didn't have this pullback, it just stayed around these highs. So let me just push play here, and let's see where the market and WIN are going to open the following day. And so what happens here? We gap down. This is our first candle, the 9:30 candle, and generally I really don't pay that much attention to this candle because there is a lot of volatility, so gaps are common in the first 10 minutes of trading. But when you see these gaps right here, they are significant gaps, and they generally establish an up or down trend. Just like we had a gap up and then established an uptrend, a gap down would probably establish some sort of downtrend. Okay, and so relatively speaking, we notice that the market has a very strong gap, whereas in WIN the gap wasn't as strong. Okay, notice how the gap in the market was a lot stronger than in WIN, and also notice how far away the 50 moving average on the SPY is, whereas on WIN it's right here where the candle is trading. So relatively speaking, WIN looks stronger than the market, but overall, based on this gap down, I'm assuming bearishness. And so the market could have support around this gap window, and it also could have support around this pivot low. Win could have support around this gap window, this gap fill here, and also around this pivot low. So Win is approaching 3 support levels, whereas the market only has 2. Okay, and this is just looking at yesterday's trading, so there may be more support and levels out there, but this is just comparing to yesterday. Let's push play and see what happens here. Okay, so moving on, the market tries to reverse, but it's having a hard time. Okay, so let's stop here. So the market here, based on these 2 red candles, it couldn't reverse, and usually in the morning you want to see a reversal right away. So this is already after 40 minutes of trading. The market is staying at these lows, and now it's having that new intraday low. Very bearish. So even though Win was consolidating sideways here, and you can already see here, so I'm cheating a little bit, but even though Win was consolidating sideways, just based on the market, it's going to have a hard time staying up. Okay, and so let's see if these 2 charts make it into their support levels. Okay, but now based on this trading on the SPY, I don't like this gap fill right here. I do like it on Win. On Win, this is still a good support level, and so is this right here. Well, not anymore because we're going to have that candle, but I do like this gap fill still on Win Resorts, whereas I don't like it on the SPY. The SPY, I prefer this level right here. So the SPY, we have just shifted the support to go lower based on this continued bearishness. Okay, moving on, the market is breaking down. Okay, so the market is breaking down, and notice how Win came into this gap window right here, but based on the market breaking down, it's going to be very risky to take that long. So now we are also shifting the support level on Win based on what the market is doing, and the market is very close to this support level right here, and based on this bearishness, it may not even hold that. So now we're shifting our support levels to be even lower on both charts. Okay, but nonetheless, there could be a reversal here. This is your current support level on the SPY. Okay, so let's see if we can coincide this support level with this support level. Okay, so the market comes into this support, it pierces it. It has this candle right here, this green candle, a very weak candle, so you may not expect a lot here, okay, as far as a reversal. But Win came into this gap window and actually pierced it. So if you want to be conservative, what you can do is, instead of actually buying this here, you can wait for the lower level. So yes, it's true that the market is into support and that Win is into support. Okay, so technically you could time your reversal here, but just based on these red candles, I would want to go lower. But you may get something out of it. Okay, you may get a quick scalp for a very small green candle. So let's see what happens. You don't even get that. So the market continues lower. It has a couple more red candles. Win continues lower, and look at how weak Win got all of a sudden. So it has these red candles also. Okay, so now the market looks like it may be trying to reverse. So now maybe you picked up a long here, and even though it was sooner than I would have anticipated, I would have liked this level right here. Okay, this level is even better. Okay, but nonetheless, the market may be trying to reverse, and we are into 11 o'clock lunchtime hour, low volume. Generally, the market doesn't break down as much as it usually does, but we have to be conservative. Again, look at the chart, look at how bearish it is. Okay, so what you could do here, if you picked up a long, is you could pick up half a position to protect yourself, because you really don't know if you're going to get that reversal, or you could go for a lower level such as this one. Let's hit play and see what happens. So the market tries to reverse. Okay, so you have, looks like a short-lived reversal here, not very powerful considering we have all these red candles, not a very powerful reversal, and Win looks stronger here. In this case, Win looks stronger. Okay, so you know, you might have made a little bit of money here on one of these candles if you had traded this gap window right here. Okay, hit play. Let's see. So the market tries really hard, but now the market is consolidating sideways. So when we look at the overall big picture here, so we have a bearish breakdown, and then we are consolidating sideways. So this is telling us that the market wants to go lower, but it may need some time. Okay, whereas WIN has some resistance at the 20 moving average, but it's closer to its 20 moving average than is the SPY. So this is basically telling me that the SPY has more room, okay, to go higher than WIN just based on these resistance levels. Let's see what happens. So the market breaking down lower, and WIN is going with it. And look at how weak WIN is. Okay, much weaker, right? Look at the red candles on the SPY and look at the red candles on WIN. So all of a sudden WIN is getting weaker based on these two. Okay, so now I am cautious. I'm cautious about WIN. It's not as strong as I initially thought it would be. Okay, moving on. Now we are consolidating sideways, and the market looks like it wants to go higher, but because this is such a big bearish pattern, it's gonna need to prove itself. So let's see if the market can get above this 20 MA. Now it's close to it, so now all of a sudden the market is going to need less energy to get through its 20 moving average, and so maybe WIN is going to follow suit and do the same thing. Let's see what happens. So the market is consolidating, trying to break out, and it is breaking out. Okay, WIN follows suit. Okay, but the market, you know, stays above the 20 MA, and let's see if WIN can do the same thing. Now WIN is still close to the 20 MA, so WIN is not out of the woods yet, whereas the market is kind of further out there away from the 20 MA, but it is coming back a little bit. Let's see what happens. Okay, the market is trying to put in a bullish consolidation pattern. Okay, it's trying to put in a bullish consolidation pattern. Had a little bit of a small breakout, but it's coming back, whereas WIN looks weaker. WIN now all of a sudden looks weaker than the market. It's actually trading below the 20 MA, whereas the market is still above its 20 MA, and you could even argue is putting in a bullish consolidation pattern, although it's still overpowered by the bearishness. Okay, let's see what happens into the rest of the afternoon. The market starts breaking down lower, but then reverses. Okay, look at this candle, this green candle on the market, almost a reversal candle. Well, here's the equivalent on WIN. Very weak, very weak. So WIN looks weaker than the market. Continuing, the market is trying to break out, but WIN is trading sideways. So you could have anticipated this. You noticed that WIN was weaker than the market, so the market tried to break out, it came back, but WIN just basically moved sideways. And let's see what happens into the rest of the day. Okay, the market is trying to, okay, the market is was trying kind of to break out and then came back, so basically chopping sideways, a lot of volatility, and WIN, you know, not so much. So WIN just had kind of a little bit of an uptick, but the next red candles is what you see at 9:30 the next morning. So I'm going to analyze the next day here, but I'm going to stop the video here, and we're going to have to continue this in our next video.